Before we begin, I just want to let you know that my other channel, Somewhere Sinister, is back up and running. I've got Season 4 complete and I'm working on Season 5, so the channel should be up and going for quite a while now. There's a link in the description. Check it out. Road rage is one of the most senseless reasons for a person to have their life ended. Being enraged by someone else's driving to the point that you run them down and kill them has to be at the top of the list for selfish monsters. These types of stories have gotten progressively more common over the years, and you hear it happening in places like Los Angeles and Miami. But this story happened back in 1996 on the outskirts of London, England, and was one of the first highly publicized accounts of road rage. This is Monsters. On November 26, 1983, 6 people broke into the Brinks Mat warehouse near Heathrow Airport in London. They poured fuel over the staff and threatened to light them on fire if they didn't reveal the combination to the vault. Inside was 3 tons of gold bullion, plus platinum and diamonds worth £26 million. That would be about £111 million today. One of the people who was involved in laundering the gold bullion was a lifetime criminal named Kenneth. Kenneth Noye was born on May 24, 1947 in Bexleyheath, Kent, England. His father operated a post office and his mother managed a dog racing track. From an early age, he displayed a penchant for criminal behavior and was involved in various illegal activities throughout his youth. He started off trying to make an honest living, delivering newspapers and milk and selling programs at the Greyhound track. He was eventually caught selling stolen bicycles and was sentenced to a year in a youth detention facility. His legal trouble did result in him meeting a young woman named Brenda Tremaine, who was a legal assistant. The two eventually got married and had 2 children. As he got older, Kenneth eventually got tired of working for someone else and started his own business. His first business was a transportation company. He had never stopped selling stolen goods and acting as a fence for other criminals either, but his honest money came from self-employment. His business was successful and he eventually bought a 20-acre property and wanted to tear down the bungalow that was already there. When the city refused, the building mysteriously burned down in an electrical fire a few weeks later. Curious. Anyway, Kenneth was able to build his dream home, which got him interested in construction and then real estate. He eventually bought a villa in Cyprus and a £700,000 yacht. Kenneth's involvement in organized crime continued to grow over the years, and he became known as a ruthless and violent individual within criminal circles. Despite multiple run-ins with law enforcement, Kenneth managed to evade serious consequences for his actions due to his cunning and ability to manipulate those around him. In addition to his criminal activities, Kenneth had a reputation for being hot-tempered and quick to anger. His aggressive behavior often landed him in confrontations with others, leading to incidents of violence and intimidation. After the Brinks Mat robbery, as authorities were investigating, they believed that Kenneth had some involvement in laundering the gold. On January 26, 1985, Detective Constable John Fordham was surveilling Kenneth's home when he was cornered by his 3 Rottweilers. When Kenneth came outside and found the undercover constable in the bushes, he stabbed him 11 times in the chest, killing him. Kenneth claimed self-defense and was acquitted of the crime, but he was convicted of being involved in the laundering of the stolen gold and sentenced to 14 years in prison. 11 gold bars were found in Kenneth's home during a search, and it's believed he had already melted down many more. Kenneth Noye was released from prison in 1994 after serving 8 years, and it didn't take him long to continue his reign of terror. 21-year-old Stephen Cameron lived in Kent and worked as an electrician, but he was planning to start his own electrical business. He was in a long-term relationship with his childhood sweetheart Danielle Cable. The two were getting ready to move into a new house together with a roommate. On May 19, 1996, Stephen and Danielle had plans to grab some bagels and then they were going to watch a football game with some friends. Danielle had just gotten her driver's license and Stephen suggested she drive the red Bedford van for their errands that day. Stephen thought that would be safer since he had consumed a great deal of alcohol the night before. It's unclear what Danielle had done to upset Kenneth. Maybe she accidentally cut him off, but he sped up in a Range Rover Discovery and pulled to a stop in front of them. Kenneth got out of the vehicle and started yelling at the occupant in the red van. Stephen got out and started yelling back, not knowing that he had gotten himself into a confrontation with a violent criminal. Being known as a hothead, it's not surprising that Kenneth threw the first punch, but that ended up being a mistake as Stephen quickly started getting the better of him. As Kenneth retreated from the fight, Stephen believed that it was over and he started walking back to the van. Kenneth had only gone back to his vehicle to grab a knife, which he used to stab Stephen twice, puncturing his heart and liver. As Stephen collapsed on the ground, Kenneth took the knife and returned to his Range Rover and drove away. Fortunately, as Danielle was using Stephen's phone to call 911, Stephen was making a mental note of Kenneth's license plate, which he was able to partially pass on to Danielle. Danielle had also called Stephen's father, and he got to the scene before the ambulance because Stephen and Danielle had been so close to their home when the attack happened. They had only been out for a few minutes before the road rage incident occurred. By the time the ambulance arrived, Stephen was gone. Kenneth immediately fled the country with the help of another criminal who had been involved in the laundering of the stolen gold bullion. Kenneth was taken to France by helicopter and then flown in a private jet to southern Spain. In December, authorities were notified that Kenneth's Range Rover Discovery had been shipped to Cyprus, so they thought he might be there. After the local authorities investigated, they found no sign of the fugitive. In August of 1998, the authorities got a tip from a traveler in Spain that they had seen Kenneth. A team went to the location and found him, and they flew Danielle to the location to have her make a positive identification. Once she did, Kenneth Noye was arrested and extradited back to the UK. That process took until May of 1999, since Kenneth filed an appeal against his extradition. The aftermath of the road rage incident sent shockwaves through the community, prompting widespread outrage and condemnation from members of the public. Many were appalled by Kenneth's blatant disregard for human life and his willingness to resort to violence over a trivial matter. The senseless loss of life left many questioning how such a horrific event could have occurred, especially at the hands of someone with such a notorious criminal history. In the days following the incident, media coverage surrounding Kenneth Noye reached a fever pitch as details emerged about his past criminal activities and violent tendencies. News outlets painted a vivid picture of a hardened criminal with a propensity for aggression, shedding light on his troubled past and providing context for his actions leading up to that fateful day. After Kenneth's appeal for extradition was denied, he was taken back to the UK where his trial started in March of 2000. The prosecution presented a strong case against him, highlighting his history of violence and aggression as evidence of his culpability in the victim's death. There were also multiple witnesses to the attack. Throughout the trial, Kenneth maintained his innocence, claiming that he had acted in self-defense during the altercation on the road. Where have we heard that before? He said that he had asked Stephen to calm down multiple times, and at some point, Stephen had threatened to kill him. Kenneth told the court that he had been driving along the road, and when he saw Danielle in the van, he thought she was a woman he knew. So at the next stoplight, he got out of his Range Rover and approached the van. When he saw the couple inside more clearly, he told them he was sorry and he thought they were someone else. At that point, Stephen got out of the vehicle and threatened him. However, witness testimonies painted a different picture. Danielle testified that Stephen had never threatened Kenneth. It was Kenneth who stopped the vehicles. It was Kenneth who got out of his vehicle, and it was Kenneth who had initiated the confrontation. Kenneth threw the first punch, and then he retreated to his vehicle where he was safe. Stephen had not pursued him in any way. Kenneth returned to Stephen, who was walking back to the van, and stabbed him to death. Her testimony was backed up by another witness named Alan DeCabrel. Allen said that he had seen the altercation on the road and that it was Kenneth who was the aggressor. Also, the prosecution presented the transcript from Kenneth's extradition hearing where Kenneth claimed he wasn't even at the scene. During that hearing, he said he had no involvement in Stephen's death and that the UK authorities were just after him for having killed a constable in the past. Now his story was that he was there, but it was self-defense. He also claimed that he had only fled the country because he knew the police were out to get him and that he wouldn't be able to get a fair trial. On April 14, 2000, Kenneth Noye was found guilty of the murder of Stephen Cameron. He was sentenced to life in prison with a recommendation that he serve at least 16 years. Overall, the public reaction and media coverage surrounding the road rage incident underscored the importance of addressing issues related to aggression and violence in society. The case served as a stark reminder of the devastating consequences that can arise from unchecked anger, especially when coupled with someone like Kenneth who had a long history of violent behavior. Due to Kenneth's connections to the criminal underworld, Danielle Cable was given a new identity and placed into a witness protection program in exchange for testifying against her boyfriend's killer. If that seems like an overreaction, Alan DeCabrel was offered the same protection but declined, and he was shot and killed on October 5, 2000. Prior to the shooting, he had received death threats in response to his testimony against Kenneth Noye. At the same time, he had a criminal record and was involved with a number of other criminals as well. After his death, his estranged wife admitted that he had sold drugs and he did owe various people money. The perpetrator of the murder and their motive is still unknown. On June 6, 2019, Kenneth Noye was released from prison after being granted parole. He had served 20 years for the murder of Stephen Cameron. At 72 years old at the time of his release, we can only hope that he's too old to end any more lives, though he wouldn't be the first geriatric monster I've covered. If you're a fan of true crime, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss an episode. You can also hit like or leave us a comment. You can check out our other show, Somewhere Sinister, on YouTube or anywhere that you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to support the show, check out our merchandise at thisismonsters.com. The link is in the description. Thanks again, and be safe.